Why wait to earn the degree you deserve? You have the experience, you have the knowledge. Now is the time to get the credit for the work you've done and earn the recognition you deserve by starting your comeback at Purdue Global. It's time to earn a degree you'll be proud of, a degree that employers will respect. It's never too late. Never too late to come back stronger and move forward in your career. Start your comeback today at purdueglobal.edu. Purdue's online university for working adults.
This episode is brought to you by Navy Federal Credit Union. It's a special thing to be a member of Navy Federal because they are a member-owned, not-for-profit credit union that invests in its members with amazing rates and low fees. That's why members could earn and save more every year. Plus, they serve all branches of the armed forces, veterans, and their families. So if you're interested in becoming a member, learn more at NavyFederal.org. At Navy Federal Credit Union, our members are the mission. Insured by NCUA.
Episode 152, Financial Independence 101 with Jamila Souffrant.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast, where you'll learn to save money, embrace simplicity, and live a richer life. Here are your hosts, Jen and Jill.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast. My name is Jen.
My name is Jill.
And today we are talking about financial independence. If any of you are familiar with the FIRE movement, we're specifically talking more about the FI part of FIRE, not the retire early part, because that's what we like more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just freedom with our money, not necessarily not working anymore. So Jamila has a really great perspective on this. Tons of freedom to find ourselves somewhere along the spectrum, ways to get there. I think wherever you're at in your journey, this is a really helpful episode. And I think she gives a lot of really great tips.
Absolutely. But first, let's shout out our sponsors.
Yes.
This episode is brought to you by the Frugal Friends Workbook Flash Sale. Yes, the Frugal Friends Workbook is a digital workbook with 6 week-long challenges that are meant to turn improving your finances into a game. So you'll get 60 pages of teaching, implementation guidance on topics ranging from decluttering and increasing your income to having healthy conversations about money. It's really very broad. So while it can be completed on your own, it's actually created to be gone through in pairs or small groups. That's why every purchase comes with 2 downloads. And for this week only, Friday to Friday, we are offering it for 40% off. So head to frugalfriendspodcast.com/workbook. No code needed. Now is your chance to get the workbook for 40% off. This is the lowest we ever offer it.
Also brought to you by autonomy, that feeling of being your own person with the agency to make your own decisions with freedom. Autonomy is reminding us that even when stuck at home with limited opportunities, at least we can choose what we eat for dinner and where our money goes.
Amen. That's the end of that, point blank.
Just done.
Yeah, so today we have Jamila Souffrant on. She is the host of the Journey to Launch podcast and journeytolaunch.com. She is one of those podcasters that we as podcasters look up to. She has a great show. She gives great information. And so it is definitely, she is someone to look up to. And I think you're going to love this interview with her.
Without further ado, here's Jamila.
Jamila, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, ladies, for having me.
So thrilled to talk with you, Jamila, and hear all of the wisdom and insight you have on this topic. It's amazing. If you Google your name, so much comes up. You are all over the place. And all this talk about, look at what this millennial did. Look how much they saved. I mean, just crushing it. And so you really are an expert on this topic. So we couldn't be more thrilled for you to be with us today.
I'm excited to talk about it with your audience.
Yes. I especially love that I feel like you bring such a level-headed view to financial independence. There's so much out there that's very extreme and it can be off-putting. And everything you put out is just like makes a lot of sense. So I'm excited to especially talk with you about this.
Yeah, I mean, that was my biggest thing. It's like, how can I talk about this in a way that's actually really authentic to the way I feel about it, that I'm not super, I know the name of this is frugal. You guys are frugality, but like for me, like I'm not super frugal. I may be frugal in some areas, but not really overall. And so I wanted to talk about financial independence and the pursuit of it in a way that was more attainable or more desirable to people like myself who want to have a more balanced approach to freedom.
I love that.
Frugality absolutely intersects with financial freedom and autonomy and independence. And so certainly the message that you have absolutely intersects with what we're doing, even if you don't wash out your Ziploc bags when you're done with them. I don't do that either, by the way.
Yeah, who does that?
But the thing about it too is like, sometimes we put these labels on things and it's like either good or bad. Like we label it one way or the other. And I think there's so much in the middle where, frugality is not bad. If you don't enjoy certain things or you don't think it's something that you need, that's fine. But it's not like we always have to look at financial independence is bad. It's only one way. Frugality is bad or good. It's only one way. I just think there's a spectrum that we can pick and choose what works for us and move on with our lives in a way that feels good.
Yes, that message of freedom. Thank you so much for bringing that to our audience, because that is at the end of the day what we want to drive home. It is personal to each one of us and we need to figure out what works for us. So yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, you got to find your radical middle.
Yes.
So yes. Okay. So Jamila, walk us a little bit through what is financial independence and how did you get into it?
Yeah. So, I mean, the technical term, if there are financial independence police out there on the internet or listening,
they're out there.
The technical term is having enough saved or invested in your portfolio, your investment portfolio, retirement portfolio, where you have enough money from that portfolio to not have to actively work anymore. So that portfolio spins off income in which you now are financially independent. You don't have to work anymore. That's the technical definition.
Awesome. What got you interested in
Right.
it?
I'm still on a journey to financial independence, but what really piqued my interest in this whole movement, and I've actually changed my ideas on it since I started Journey to Launch, which is my platform, is that I would say stuck, quote unquote, stuck in a commute in a job that I wasn't in love with. And so I was working in corporate America after graduating from college, kind of got on the trajectory of climbing the corporate ladder, although I always wanted to have more freedom in my life. Like I was always one of those kids where, I didn't like people telling me what to do. I don't know what kid does, but I'm just like, I wanted to just be my own boss. I felt like when I graduated from college, I wanted to I already had this idea that I was going to not work for anyone past 30 years old. And then I didn't know how that was going to happen. I thought maybe, okay, I need to start a business, win the lottery. I don't know. I had to do something big to make that happen. Then I started businesses in my 20s, or I attempted to do different things outside of my corporate career, and none of them panned out. And so I kind of got into this thing where I guess I need to work until I'm 65, like everyone else in this building around me does. And that's it. Like, who are you to have these big dreams? So I kind of forgot about it, or at least, I thought it wouldn't be possible for me to ever quit my job. And then early 30s now. So I passed this mark that I set for myself that I wasn't going to work for anyone past 30. I was in this commute that was really long. But at this stage, I was pregnant with my first son. And so being pregnant with my son, and the typical commute at that time was like an hour and a half one way, which I got used to. Being no kids, single, my life progressed to the point where I was married by the time I was pregnant. But, it's different when it's just you, or it's just you and your partner. So if I got home at 7:30, fine. But that day when I was pregnant with my first son, it took 4 hours. The commute was horrible, one way to get home that day.
Whew.
And the traffic gods were not pleased. Everything that could go wrong that day went wrong. And so I remember just being pregnant and saying to myself, this can't be my life. And I knew I wanted more kids. And I just said, I can't do this anymore, or I need to figure out a way out. And I started to just think about, okay, what can I do to get me to a position where this doesn't have to be my life forever? Started Googling how to quit my job, all these things, right? That maybe people do if they're in a job they don't like. How to quit my job, how to retire. I didn't know about financial independence in this way that I spoke about it. But then, of course, all these blogs started to come up. I discovered Mr. Money Mustache and all these things that I actually don't follow as much anymore, but they were an entry point to open my eyes up to a way in which you can save and invest your income over time to be able to become financially independent, where you can quit said job one day and do what you want. And so that really hooked me, because I said, okay, there's a way I can do this without necessarily being like an entrepreneur or winning the lottery. Like I can do this from my job and just be smarter with the way I save and invest it. And that's what really prompted me to start the journey.
Awesome.
It's amazing to me, Jamila, so often, not every time, but a lot of times when we talk with people who are in this process towards reaching financial goals or kind of caught the bug of becoming debt-free or whatever it is, there is typically this pivotal moment that you can remember kind of vividly. Like there's images attached to it. There's specific life circumstances attached to it. For you, it was this 4-hour commute, pregnant and wanting something different as kind of the breaking point. But also another theme that I've realized with that is it's usually some sort of difficult moment. It's that almost like, okay, this felt awful and I didn't want to feel this again. And kind of it offers a helpful reframe, I think, even for our listeners, what you're describing, because it can be those very difficult moments that are the catalysts to something new, that finally give us what we need to say, enough, we're going to go a different direction. We're going to be creative. We're going to find some freedom for ourselves. So I think there's a lot of really beautiful tenets in what you're describing here that can be helpful for folks.
Yeah, I'm a big believer, and it sounds corny, but I do believe everything happens for a reason. Every life experience, good or bad, develops you into the person you are today. So like the trials and tribulations you're currently going through or been through, like are preparing you for something else and possibly better, but it's pushing you forward, and it's the way you frame that. And so I definitely, once I discovered that this was a thing, I used it as fuel for me to figure out a plan. I call it like the gift and the curse. When you find out about, and I think this is not just financial independence, but just money, just anything that like pushes you to make better decisions, but specifically financial independence. Like once I realized it was a thing, it was a gift, because I thought, okay, so there's a way in which with my income, at the time I was married, we're starting our family, that we could do better with our lives or with our money. And in the same regard, I also felt, and when I mapped it out and how long it will take us to reach our goals, I was like, wow, like now that I know about this thing, it kind of made me a little bit more impatient about what this could look like, because I was like, wow, like I actually now have to wait 7-10 years, which in the grand scheme of things is not long. But I call it the gift and curse, because you're opened up now to this new world, a new way of doing things, which is exciting. But then now you have to make changes. You have to be patient, because it's not overnight that these things happen either, that the changes happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes me want this, like one of those signs that you get from Marshalls that like says, embrace the struggle. Like there is so much growth and joy that comes out of struggles, whether they are from us or from external factors. And when we are in it, we definitely don't want to embrace it. But it's such a great reminder that it's out of the struggles that come these great things, the things that make us truly joyful.
Yeah.
Jamila, you mentioned that a lot has changed for you since that time, since that moment of being pregnant in the car, traffic odds against you, up until this point on your financial independence journey, and even not even following some of the same people. I'm curious what else you've noticed about how your pursuit of financial independence has shifted over the years.
Yeah, this is a great question, because when I started, so initially when I was pregnant and I started to Google and look into this concept, it's not that I started right away, Journey to Launch, right? So Journey to Launch, right now it's like, it's a podcast, it's all these things. But in the beginning, it was just meant to be a blog, because I was so inspired by the other bloggers and, guests on other podcasts documenting their journey. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to document my journey. So I started Journey to Launch to do that. And at the time, myself and my husband, we were working our job. So I was in corporate America, and I had a pretty good job, where I got bonuses, and the, career trajectory was where I could earn a lot of money over time. My husband's a teacher, but together our income living in New York City was pretty good. And so, it was all about how much can we save and invest, like how aggressively, relatively, like where we can still like enjoy the things we did, but that we can like save as much of our income as possible, so that I could possibly. And at the time when I officially started Journey to Launch, I was like, I'm going to quit and reach financial independence, my version of it, by 40 years old. But at the time, we had our jobs, we had income to do that. So the first 2 years that we intentionally started this, we were able to save $169,000 between our 401ks, our 403b plan, like using all the tax advantage retirement accounts. As I started to document this to be a journey to launch, I eventually had a podcast and all these things. I started to realize, like, wait a second, there's a lot going on here, because now I'm working this job. By then, I forgot how many kids I had at that time. I have 3 now. But it started to grow.
They came along the way.
Right. And so I didn't my first was already born by the time I started Journey to Launch. But then as I started to get really into financial independence and figuring out my path, I started to have more kids. And so by then I was like juggling a full-time job, which was pretty demanding, a really crazy commute, kids, and then 2 at the time, because I had my second son by then, and then Journey to Launch, which was kind of taken off. So I would come home after the kids go to bed, and then I would do the podcast and I'd blogs and all this stuff. And you guys know how much work that is. And so I started to think to myself, there's no way I can sustain this for the next, 5-6 years at that time, right? Because my goal was to work in my job, get that money, save and invest, and then be able to quit, do my own thing, and not have to worry about money. And I was like, wait a second, that's not going to be sustainable with as much as I have going on. And so I had to come to the decision of if I was going to continue to do all the things or drop something. And, the job didn't make the cut. I had to actually leave my job in order to really create balance in my life and continue on this path at my own pace.
Yeah, most people would have dropped the podcast. Most people do drop their podcast. It's impressive when somebody podcasts past 10 episodes.
Well, this is why, my ideas and what I believe and think about financial independence have shifted and evolved over time, is because, if you look at why people want financial independence or financial freedom, if you don't, that term is too much for you, or to pay off debt and all these things, you want more options. You want more flexibility. You want ownership of your time. And so if you are able to create that without necessarily all the money in the bank just yet, and more flexibility and freedom, you've won, or you're winning in a way. And so realizing that while I wouldn't be financially independent, while this would be a big risk because my income at the time was, more than half the income of the household, I had the most potential to earn more money than my husband did as a teacher. And so for me to walk away from that, to have the flexibility that I have now, it's not like it's not hard work to be a full-time entrepreneur, but to have the flexibility, to have a bit more freedom and options, I was like, that is the goal, right? And so I said to myself, if it's going to be more money at this job versus my sanity, my health, just my happiness versus who knows what's going to happen with this business, but hey, we'll be okay. And I would have, more just balance in my life. It was like a no-brainer for me at that point that I had to pick myself and Journey to Launch and the kids more than the job.
I appreciate the calculated risks that you're describing in your story, that it was a risk to step away from what you're describing, a pretty decent job, but yet wasn't providing you the flexibility. But you didn't do that immediately. It was a learning process of following others. It was, all right, beginning to look at your own story. It was staying in your job for a little while and building this other thing to see if this is worth investing more into.
And that is such a good point, because, this was a calculated risk. I didn't decide one day and just quit. So the moment that I did know that I wanted to quit, we got pregnant with my third child. And I said to myself, by the time I'm off from maternity leave, I would like not to have to go back to work. And so that gives us, a year and a half to figure this out, to start saving money in order to support this big life change, because my husband's job at that point and still today doesn't cover all of our expenses. So we needed to create this runway, this FU fund, where it was going to sustain us while I figured Journey to Launch out, while I figured out what was going to be happening. And, at the time, Journey to Launch wasn't making it hardly anything compared to what I was bringing in, but there was potential. And I knew that if I had more time to focus on it, I could grow it to something bigger. But I think the calculated risks are important in terms of if you have a job. So I'm not for everyone should be entrepreneur or quit their jobs. I think working is amazing. If you can find a job that you love and that, pays you what you want to be paid and has great benefits, that's not a bad thing. You can use that job to help, fund the things you love and your investments and your life. That's not horrible. I don't think everyone is meant to become an entrepreneur. So for me, it's like if you're doing something, if you're working somewhere right now, whether you love it or not, if you love it, that's great. But like be intentional, use that money like as something that's going to propel you forward. Like, look at what the income can do for you as you grow in the job or the position or what you want to do in life. Because that's honestly, without my job, I would not have been able to do all the things that I've done so far.
AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry, and literally billions of dollars are being invested. So buckle up. The problem is that AI needs a lot of speed and processing power. So how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing. And of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, and Databricks Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/strategic. That's oracle.com/strategic. oracle.com/strategic.
Hi, I'm Martine Hackett, and I'm hosting the second season of Untold Stories, Life with a Severe Autoimmune Condition, a production from Ruby Studio in partnership with argenx, sharing real stories of MG, CIDP, and other autoimmune conditions. We hope to share inspiration and educate the larger community about these severe and often overlooked conditions.
I can't fix this, I can't cure this. And, I'll take my treatment day by day, but I want to try to be engaged, be involved, or be as helpful as I feel I can with the limitations I have of working full time to children. So I participate in market research to provide information to hopefully benefit others, because it's a small margin of people that have the myasthenia, but then to get pregnant, it's an even more narrow margin. And you can't ever have too much information as an epidemiologist.
Yeah, exactly right. Listen to Untold Stories, Life with a Severe Autoimmune Condition on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Absolutely. And thanks for saying that, Jamila. It's not as if anyone out there has to start their own blog. That was your process. And I know that's the message that you're speaking of, freedom, of whatever it is, there can be financial independence available to people. A lot of what you're describing is just going aggressively at saving and investing. For you, the pathway forward in that was blogging and teaching other people how to do this, but it doesn't have to be that. The primary focus is what can we be doing to be getting at these goals more aggressively rather than just going about life status quo. There are more options out there.
Yeah, and I do want to say about the aggressive part, because we were more aggressive in the beginning when we had the income, because we had the flexibility to do that. But when I made the decision to stop, that I wanted to quit, that whole time working up to that while I was pregnant, we had to save that money. So we had to stop investing altogether in our investment accounts in order to save enough cash to have to be comfortable. And even after that, now working full time, the first 2 years almost, we weren't investing again because we needed that money to be able to live. And so every journey, every path is going to be different depending on your circumstance. And so if you're in a position where you can aggressively save and invest because you have the income and or you're super frugal and you enjoy the lifestyle, then do that, right? But I find that sometimes people feel really bad, which I don't want them to feel, that they can't do as much, because if you have small kids and you have to work and pay for daycare, that's an expense you can't get out of, right? Like if you are commuting or just there's life happening, like you have to adjust for that in your journey. And it's okay if there are some points where you can't do the most, especially in the pandemic, right? Like we're still going through this and people's situations have changed so much. So I just want to just caution that everyone's journey looks different. And I had to adjust the way we saved and invested as a family based on our circumstances. And most likely you will have to also.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. Sometimes not investing on financial independence can be like big red X's. But I mean, we did the same thing. I got laid off 6 weeks before I had my first son, and we stopped investing for the first year just to make sure. And then lo and behold, a pandemic happened and my husband works in aircraft maintenance. So we still weren't investing and besides our IRAs. And so now we're kind of like starting to get back into that like aggressive. But yeah, we took time off and like part of me was feeling like guilty. And I had to keep reminding myself, like, you don't get that money back. Sometimes you just need to pay for things and you need to have money.
Well, so what's interesting is, so this whole talk, and, you know, I think it's interesting because you can make all the plans in the world about what you're going to do when you get to a certain point, and then it happens and it feels totally different because we essentially created this fund, this FU fund. And I don't think I need to explain what that is, or maybe I do, but like, it's like enough money to sustain you, right? Like for a long time. So it's more than maybe an emergency fund, but like it's money where you can use this to walk away from something or do something different and not have to really worry about your bills. And so we planned that this money would start to decrease over time because Journey to Launch was not making money and contributing to the household income. And even with that, even knowing that and planning for it and having this big, like, you know, lump sum, seeing it deplete every month was like, it was crazy. It was actually like, that wasn't a good feeling because I was so used to being able to grow money, save and invest. But to see it now going down every month, even though I knew that what was going to happen, but to see it actually happen, definitely like it was uncomfortable, but also remembering that this is what you plan for, like, and also to understand the trade-off, right? So the trade-off for me taking that money out of our savings, it was me being home, being able to work on my business, having more flexibility, like not just seeing the money depleting, but seeing what that money was giving back to me. Like that actually wasn't an investment, even though it didn't seem like it at the time. It was an investment into what I'm doing now, my happiness, my time. And so, you know, you have to reframe the way you think about things a lot of the times.
Yeah, definitely. So for people who want to pursue financial independence, what do you think is something that's like most helpful to know for people starting out that journey?
Yeah, so you have to break this out into steps to make it more desirable or attainable. Because if you think about, so technically, if you wanted to pursue the technical definition, the quick rule of thumb is multiplying how much you want to spend annually by 25, right? So that's what the point in which you reach financial independence, because then you can withdraw 4% of that portfolio every year without technically running out of money. If you do that calculation based on how much you spend, that can possibly be a big number. Like for certain people who are maybe frugal, don't spend a lot, maybe it's not as huge. But if you are, you know, have kids, spend a lot, and or like certain things, that may be a lot of money. And so when you make that calculation and you look at where you are currently, it can seem like a long ways away, right? Like if you have debt, if you're not earning enough, all these things. And I think that can sometimes just be, you know, that's why most people, and I don't necessarily disagree with them, think that financial independence is not possible. But I do think what's possible is, so I break down the journey to financial independence in stages because I want people to understand that it's a marathon and there are different things that you have to do to get to this ultimate goal. And so like the first stage is becoming just financially like stable, that you can pay your bills, pay your debt, and not go into the red every month and put money on your credit card. Like that's just stage one, right? Stage two, and I call them the journeyer stages in my content, but stage two, I call it like the cadet stage, where like you're paying off debt, consumer debt. And so that stage can take a while, depending on what kind of consumer debt you have. You know, I don't include like a mortgage or student loan debt in there because those balances can tend to be high. And then once you pay off your debt, which can take years or, you know, who knows how long, the next stage is stage 3, the aviator stage. You're building your assets. So you paid off most of your debt. So now you can focus on growing your assets, your investments. And then stage 4 is where you can get to work flexibility, which is what I currently have. So I believe everyone can get to stage 4. I do believe that it can be possible for everyone, meaning work flexibility defined as you can choose what you want to do. So it doesn't mean you don't have to work. You still have to bring in money, but you have more flexibility in what you choose to do. Maybe you can take a break, you know, whether that's to have kids, travel the world. But because you set up such a solid foundation by passing all those other steps, you have more options. You're not like stuck in a bad situation or place because you can't pay your bills. And then stage 5, like that's the next stage, that is complete financial independence. So I tell people when they're looking at this is to break it up into stages, identify the stage you're in, realize that, you know, each stage has its own milestones within it, to be very proud of yourself for that, but to look at this in a way that motivates you instead of like deters you. Like, you know, don't set like the goal of, oh, I need to like save and invest 2 million. I'm only at negative 30,000 or, you know, depending on where you are. And this feels like I can't do it. set your milestones within those different stages so that you can, feel good about the progress you make.
I love the way that you succinctly identified kind of how you can move through this. I think that so much of the battle is this goal competition, or what should I be focusing on first or next? Or I know that something we run into with people and myself of, okay, I'm debt free. Now what? That took so much of my time, energy, and attention. What do I do now? And to have a clear pathway forward. But again, as you say, with milestones in it, with freedoms within that to define how that's going to look. And thank you for certainly tempering me with my use of the word aggression, but also with identifying that work flexibility doesn't necessarily mean that everyone gets to just sit at home and work on, not just sit at home and work on your computer. That comes with its own difficulties too, but that it looks different. We still need all of the different trades and career paths, but really that flexibility to not feel stuck.
Yeah.
That you can move into something else if what you are currently doing is not for you. It's not making enough income for your family or your needs, or you're just not enjoying it. So just this message of freedom that's woven throughout here is so appreciated.
Yeah.
I don't know, Jamila, if you have anything outside of these stages, or you've outlined this beautifully, but if somebody is kind of hearing this and saying, yeah, I want to aim at this, is there something that they should be considering doing first, maybe even before entering into stage one, or maybe in the midst of stage one? Like if someone's saying, yes, I want this, what would you advise as one of the very first steps to take?
Well, first you need to know where you currently are. So like assessment and like getting the numbers out there is key, because you can define like your target point of where you ultimately want to be and how much you ultimately want to have, which by the way can change because your life, what you prefer, the things change over time, right? But it's important to understand what your starting point is. And so you're going to have to take inventory of what your current liabilities are, what your current assets are, what's your income, what's your expenses, like the four major things: income, expenses, assets, liabilities, and really get that in front of you on paper. And for most people, right, like the big idea, like we talk about this a lot, like the big concepts, or at least I do, the big concepts of freedom and financial independence. But then people, like, it's everyday life that people need to live, including myself. Like what on an everyday, like in scenario, what are you doing with your money where it's not overwhelming, where you feel in control of it? And so the first step is to know your numbers and then figure out a money management like system and tool that you can use to now help you get to your goals. So whether that is getting that budget together, you have debt that you need to work on. Okay, so what is a debt payoff plan and how does that look and how will you accomplish it? But the first step ultimately is understanding where you are. So assessment.
We just cannot skip over this phase as much as people want to. Oh, and that can be a big barrier for people. If I don't want to look.
I am surprised by how many people listen to the show and pursue like financial education. And then I ask, okay, how much debt do you have? And they're like, haven't taken a tally. And I was like, but you have to know your numbers before you can completely like move on from them.
Well, and some people don't want to know.
Okay, we're here for
I know, yeah.
Like, you don't want to actually see it, and you don't want to know like how much you're spending. Like it never fails every time that I have someone do this exercise where they are actually like looking back at how much they spent over the last 3 months. Like they're like, I never knew I was spending that much on like going out or groceries or all these little items. And so, it can seem a little bit overwhelming at first, but it's necessary. You have to at least take inventory of where you currently are in order to figure out how you're going to move forward.
It's the first step in being able to then have any level of control over it or determine how you're moving forward.
I would like to point out something here because I know I'm talking about like, tactical, like, numbers, but ultimately I am a big believer of mindset and habits. And so I always say people do want to go strictly to like, how can I reduce my expenses? How can I make more money? Which are important. Like those are the two things that like are going to get you to your goals, like earning more and optimizing for expenses. But none of that can be completed or done or sustained without the mindset to do it and the habits to help you do it. And so I actually believe that, if you're listening to this podcast and it's great that you're aware. Awareness is the first step, that this is something that you should be into or thinking about, but it's really mindset and habits that are going to sustain you and determine what the journey is like for you. So I wanted to just like say, working on your money mindset, working on your overall health and quality of life and how you feel about yourself and money is extremely important.
Preach.
100%.
Yes.
I affirm this. We're whole people. We're not just financial or just relational, right? We are emotional, mental, spiritual, relational beings, and they all work in conjunction. And so the more we're able to care for all aspects of our personhood, the better off we'll be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Speaking of just taking care of important
And
things.
things that make us better off.
The bill of the week.
That's right. It's time for the best minute of your entire week. Maybe a baby was born and his name is William. Maybe you paid off your mortgage. Maybe your car died and you're happy to not have to pay that bill anymore. Duck bills, Buffalo Bills, Bill Clinton. This is the bill of the week.
Jamila, every week we invite a listener or our guest, if we have one on, to share with us their bill of the week. And we sprung this on you very last minute. Jamila, you can just start off with your bill.
Yes. Well, so I've had a little bit of time to think about this. And a bill that I actually love paying is help for my kids. So I am, working from home, and luckily I do have help where, someone can watch my kids while I'm doing my work. And so I gladly play. And there's someone I'm acting like this person I don't know. This someone is my aunt. So I am really grateful that I'm able to, provide her with income and then also get some, relief and space so that I can do what I, love to do, which is Journey to Launch. So that's a bill I gladly pay. And I wish I could pay her more. And that's why I need to make more money so I can pay her more.
I'm with you. Daycare is the best money I pay every other week. And I tried to pay her more so I could leave him there longer. And she's like, no, this is fine. And I was like, please, no. Can you keep him on the weekend maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, I can't. I know I'm really lucky to have that. And so, yeah, I gladly pay her money and whenever I can.
Mm-hmm. Values-based spending.
Yes.
I love it. That's what comes with financial independence and frugality.
Absolutely.
If you want to submit your bill of the week, if it's a bill about having people care for your sweet young cherubs or anything else, please visit frugalfriendspodcast.com/bill. Leave us your bill. Surprise us.
Let us know.
Hi, I'm Martine Hackett, and I'm hosting the second season of Untold Stories, Life with a Severe Autoimmune Condition, a production from Ruby Studio in partnership with argenx, sharing real stories of MG, CIDP, and other autoimmune conditions. We hope to share inspiration and educate the larger community about these severe and often overlooked conditions.
I can't fix this. I can't cure this. And, I'll take my treatment day by day, but I want to try to be engaged, be involved, or be as helpful as I feel I can with the limitations I have of working full time to children. So I participate in market research to provide information to hopefully benefit others, because it's a small margin of people that have the myasthenia, but then to get pregnant, it's an even more narrow margin. And you can't ever have too much information as an epidemiologist.
Yeah, exactly, right? Listen to Untold Stories, Life with a Severe Autoimmune Condition on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
We all agree that reducing carbon emissions is a good thing. And once again, Toyota is leading the way. We hear a lot about fully electric vehicles, and Toyota has them, with more on the way. But we also know a BEV is not for everyone, whether it's because of cost, range, or concern about finding a charging station when you need it.
Plus, the raw materials used to manufacture batteries are limited. Enter Beyond Zero, Toyota's vision for a carbon-neutral future, in vehicles and in manufacturing plants, too, in the years ahead. The materials used to make just one long-range battery for an EV could be used to make batteries for 6 plug-in hybrids or 90 gas-electric hybrids. That's why Toyota's position today is electrified, diversified, empowering you to choose how to reduce your own carbon footprint with the vehicle that's right for you. A hybrid, plug-in hybrid, or battery EV. So shop, learn more, and get details at toyota.com/beyond zero. Toyota, let's go places.
And now it's time for
the lightning round.
I left you hanging there. I'm so sorry, Joanne.
No, that's good.
The lightning round. We are going to go around and share the next financial milestone we are each working on. So, Jamila, as our guest, you can go first.
All right. My next financial milestone. Okay, so here's the thing. We have started to invest again. Feels amazing. And before the end of the year, I opened up my solo 401k. I'm waiting to do my whole tax returns first to see the max that I feel like I want to put into that solo 401k. So I'm really excited about that, to invest into that account for the first time since, leaving my job, being able to invest in a pre-tax retirement account.
That's awesome. That is actually almost the same thing that I'm saying. So our next goal is to have, we hit the 100,000 milestone for both of us, and now we want to hit 100,000 each. And so my husband's starting a new job in 2 weeks, I guess. And he won't have a 401k, a good 401k anymore. So I have to open my solo 401k, and I will have, I have to do that in the next few weeks. So I was just researching before we got on this interview.
Yeah, well, it was super simple for me to do. I just opened it up because from what my tax person said, I needed to open it up before the end of 2020 in order to contribute it, after the fact in 2021, whatever, all this tax talk. But all I know is I'm excited to start investing again in that way because, I like investing and saving and growing money. So it's really exciting to get back to it.
I'm in a bit different of a place than you both. So here's the real-time freedom that's happening over here. I've got so much goal competition with money. And so there's this element, and Jen has been so helpful with this of, okay, where can I put small amounts of money, but where can I also really be going hard right now? And so one of our goals, my husband and I just bought a home and it needs renovations. As Jen so lovingly describes my new home, it's a dumpster fire.
It's got good bones.
It's livable. It's got good bones and it's going to be lovely, but we want to cash flow our home renovations. We are out of debt, of course, other than this mortgage we just saddled ourselves with, but don't want to get into more debt. And so we're cash flowing home renovations. That's our goal for this year, is to put as much money as we can to go at that hard so that in the coming year or two, we can then look at going at it greater money into investments and retirement accounts. But for this year, it's a new kitchen.
I love that.
But we did set up your Roth IRA contributions.
She did. Yes.
I pulled out my computer one night. She was at my house and I was like, girl, we need to get you invested.
I was like, but I see putting money into my home as an investment. And you're like, yeah, I support you. You were so good with me. But let's put a little bit of money in so that you're not completely halting this and then still go hard at your home renovation. So I feel good about that. I'm not completely putting other goals on the back burner entirely, but also probably won't be maxing out the Roth IRA this year.
That's okay. Little bit.
And it's okay.
Time in the market is more important than the amount invested. And we got you.
And my home will be worth so much more money.
Especially here.
And you'll enjoy it too, right? That's part of just selecting the things you do and why you're doing it. So,
girl, yeah, you need that new kitchen.
Everyone knows there's exposed wires and tile falling off the walls. So
very weird.
But I don't want to go into debt for it. So this is what needs to happen.
Yes. Well, Jamila, thank you again for coming on. This was a great conversation. And I hope that it has kind of made financial independence more accessible to more people and believe that it is more attainable for them. Where can people get more from you if they want to hear your beautiful voice more?
Well, thank you. And so if wherever you listen to this podcast, you can just type in Journey to Launch and you'll find my podcast, which you can listen to. I also drop episodes every Wednesday, whether it's solo episodes with me or guest. And you can also find me at Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. I mostly hang out on Instagram at Journey to Launch. And you can go to my website, which I just got redone, by the way. So journeytolaunch.com for more information.
Very cool. Yeah. Journey to Launch is an amazing podcast. So definitely go subscribe right now.
Yeah. And it gets me excited about space exploration too. Your intro music. I'm like, so how fitting.
Yeah. It's so funny. I didn't know at the time, like I'd go so far, which is why my journey or stages also sound, like I'm based them off of like traveling to space and like the positions people have. Like I was like, I might as well just go all in, right? Like I'm all in. So here I am.
Well, good.
So
yes, if you love space exploration, definitely get in on this
financial
show.
independence. It's
it.
a good blend.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Jamila. So great talking with you, and best wishes to you with beginning investing again.
Thank you so much.
That was fantastic.
So great. Just as you said at the beginning of the episode, such an approachable way that Jamila presents this concept. And I know we keep using this word freedom, but I think it's genuine to the way that she positions herself, how she messages about this. And it gets me excited, at least. I know even as someone who is aiding in putting this content out, it's also speaking to me, something to aim at and ways to get there. It's so great.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely if financial independence is something you're interested in or just hearing other great interviews, for sure go and subscribe to Journey to Launch. You will definitely enjoy it. We highly recommend. And please, if you like this show and these interviews, leave us a review on iTunes or Stitchers. We very much appreciate that too. And we thank you so much. I have given us the goal to get 1,000 reviews this year. We are very far away from it, but with your help, we can do it. Like this one from Hannah Jane Price. Informed, fun, practical. And it just happens to be 5 stars. She says, if you're not subscribed to this, you need to be. After discovering this fantastic resource about 18 months ago and going on a full Frugal Friends binge, Jen and Jill feel like old friends who just never miss with what I need to hear. Sometimes it's a new way of looking at something, sometimes just validating or reinforcing what needs renewed attention in my financial life. What sets this podcast apart from many others I've tried is just how informed their perspective is. They aren't afraid to acknowledge the underlying emotional side of personal finance and offer honest and practical advice that suits all circumstances. There's something here for everyone. Can't recommend enough.
Wow.
That was beautiful.
Beautifully
Hannah.
written and really comprehensive. Not all reviews need to be this comprehensive, but we so appreciate it. Some really helpful feedback here about what you enjoy about the podcast, and it helps others to know if they're going to find what they're looking for in our podcast. We know we're not for everyone, but we're so glad to be here for you who appreciate our style and the way that we're delivering the content. We also want to thank our friends who share these episodes on social media. So when you share the latest episode and tag us on Facebook or Instagram, we add you to our monthly drawing. For every 5 tags and reviews we get each month, we give away 1 copy of the Frugal Friends workbook, which if you've been listening to this podcast for any amount of time, you know that 1 copy of the Frugal Friends workbook actually comes with 2 copies. So you can share it with a friend and go through it together. So enjoy.
You have our full permission to share it. So keep leaving us reviews on iTunes and Stitcher. And if you want to win a copy of the Frugal Friends workbook, send the screenshot to frugalfriendspodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to tag us on social. And Jennifer, our lovely assistant producer, will send you that if you win.
Yay. See you next week.
Bye. Frugal Friends is produced by Eric Siriani.
Is our assistant producer you? Are you Jennifer?
No. I've told you about Jennifer before.
Yes.
She's my VA. And when I have her doing Frugal Friends work, she's the assistant producer.
You have told me about her. I just wanted to make sure that you weren't referring to yourself.
I'm in the third person. I would never do that.
Good to know.
Like I would never get on TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. We know how serious to take your nevers.
I know.
Never say never.
It's so embarrassing.
Well, at least you're investing.
Go follow me on TikTok.
At least you're doing it. You're doing the thing.
Thank you.
Finding your own journey.
Bring home Napoleon.
Destiny has brought me here.
The action epic from acclaimed director Ridley Scott.
What is your name?
Napoleon.
You are the greatest leader in the history of the world.
Witness the rise.
You are nothing without me.
Of the legend. Starring Academy Award winner Joaquin Phoenix and Vanessa Kirby.
I'm the first to admit when I make a mistake. I simply never do.
Napoleon. Buy or rent on digital now. Rated R.
Need an easy button to feed your baby? Baby Brezza's Formula Pro Advanced makes a perfectly mixed warm formula bottle automatically at the push of a button. No air bubbles, no fuss. Literally, choose your temp, select your ounces, push start, and you're done. Works with virtually all formulas and bottles. Say goodbye to the 3 a.m. feeding chaos and hello to this revolutionary stress-free solution. Raising a baby is hard enough. Let Baby Brezza make feeding a breeze. Get your Formula Pro Advanced at babybrezza.com.